Hey everybody, it's Irene with BrainStormAcres. And as you can see, I have quite the mess on my dining room table. And this mess is because I've been sorting patterns. Over the years, I've participated in a whole bunch of workshops where we helped people who had historic clothing that didn't fit quite right. And they really liked them, and they liked them well enough that they wanted to be able to fix them, but they didn't know what was wrong with them. One of the most common things I see is the bust lines in the wrong spot. On a modern piece of clothing that has darts in the side to give you a bust line, that dart actually has to line up with where your bust line is. And if it's higher or lower, your clothes are not going to fit right. Sometimes you can fix that simply by shortening the arm side. This here is called the arm scythe. And if you were to, let's see, do I have anything here that's an arm scythe? Not really. This almost has one. But if I were making believe that this was an outfit here, and this is where my sleeve goes, that would be my arm scythe. And sometimes, the way I figured this out, go back in ancient history here. When I was in high school, I used to sew a bunch of my clothes. Not all of them, but a bunch of my summer dresses and stuff I would sew myself. And I had been forced to take home economics, and we started in 6th grade, and then we did it in 7th grade and 8th grade. Once I hit 9th grade, there was no room in my schedule for home ec, so you know, I was back to dealing with what my mom could do. My mom was a good sewist, but she could not tailor. She could shorten a sleeve, she could shorten a hem, but she did not understand how to tailor the body to make it fit right. I don't know what year it would have been. I probably was 15 or 16, I'm guessing. So that's a million years ago. I had chosen this summer dress that had a cute little yoke like that, and sleeveless. So it was a simple dress, but it was supposed to be fit, and it not a circle skirt, but a flared bottom to it. And sewed it up, and it did not even vaguely fit. I mean, the pattern was wrong. We had bought the right size pattern. I couldn't tell you what brand it was, but it was either McCall's or Simplicity. I think it was a McCall's. And it was terrible. It just didn't even vaguely fit me. They had obviously totally screwed up the measurements, because my mom and I would always go through, you know, you take your measurements and you know where they are, and you look at the little chart on the back, and it tells you which size you should wear and all that other stuff. And it didn't even vaguely fit. And my best friend, who I usually spent most of my summers with, was on vacation with her family. So I had nothing to do. There was no TV during the day in those days. I had been reading, but there was nobody home in the neighborhood. It was boring. And I looked at that dress again, and I said, I wonder if I can fix this. Somewhere along the line, I got the idea that I could probably fix it, or I was going to try it. And I didn't want to hurt it, so I wasn't going to sew with a sewing machine. So I started basting it by hand. And I tried it on, and I said, okay, well, this is wrong, that's wrong, you know. And I started looking at I had a full-length mirror, so I was able to stare and go, well, gee, the bust line is down here. My bust line is up here. I wonder if we could raise that. And I realized I could simply grab the shoulders and raise that, and the arm side was too big. It showed the side of your bra, and I'm sorry, in the 60s that was not acceptable. Just wasn't. I mean, you know, we didn't show our underwear in those days. So I was like, oh, I wonder if I could fix that somehow. And there was no way to sew it closed, but I could. This section here was too long. Like the dart was not here, it was down here. And it was as if they had substituted, instead of, it was supposed to be a Mrs. pattern, it was as if they had substituted women's, which is designed for women who are shorter usually. So I sat there and played around with it, and I would take it on and off and look in front of the mirror and look at, you know, on and off, on and off, on and off. By the end of the day, I had figured out what was wrong with it, and what I wound up doing was shortening the yoke. So instead of coming all the way down like this, it probably came down like this. But I shortened the arm scythes by literally pulling it up the shoulder. I took out like 2 inches at the shoulder, and all of a sudden, the bust line was where it belonged. And then I was able to experiment with, it had seams here, so you could actually take the seams in and fit it to yourself. And by the time I was done, that thing fit really well. And I was totally, you know, self-taught. I hadn't hurt the fabric because I was very careful to be doing it all by hand with a needle and thread and some old thread that didn't matter. And I would even reuse the thread. I had actually gotten that idea from reading a book. I want to say it was like Little Women or something like that. It was one of the traditional books that, you know, everybody was supposed to read in those days. And it was talking about the women doing hand sewing, and they did it for a living, and they would reuse the basting thread that they had because thread was expensive. And I did that. I found a thread that really stood out against the fabric so that I could see it easily, and I would pin things, and then I would go back and do it over and over again until I had it fit right. And then once it was fit right, I actually sewed it with a sewing machine and cut off all the extra fabric and stuff like that. Understanding how to look at an outfit and figure out what's wrong can be a huge benefit. I was actually looking to see if I had any books here that would be appropriate to recommend, and it was hysterical because the only book I found is one that I inherited from my mother. The dust cover is mostly gone on it, but it says Singer Sewing Book. It was a gift from my father to my mother for Christmas in 1951. And that was not the first printing of this. I think the first printing was in about 45? No, 49, okay. First printing was in 49. And this is the Singer Sewing Book to make you into the nifty, gliftiest little housewife ever. But there are books like this that are more modern that teach you how to, things titled Feminine Frills, woo! But it teaches you all the basics. And I know there are books like this. I don't currently own any that I could recommend. I used to have a Reader's Digest one that was basic. I don't have a clue as to where it is right now, whether I gave it away to somebody or what. But it had how to do zippers. It had how to do buttonholes, how to do all those kind of things. And it's not a bad idea if you're having trouble fitting your body to patterns or your patterns to your body, depending on how you want to look at it. If you went to look at costuming books, perhaps, in a library, because they will usually discuss, you've got this problem, how do you fix it? Understanding the three-dimensionality of the human body. We're not a stick figure. We have lumps and bumps in certain spots. And my waist to the back of my neck is not going to be the same as somebody else's. So, and where's your natural waist? And where's the waist on this particular outfit? Is it a drop waist, so it's down here? Or is it a high waist? Or is it where your natural waist is? So understanding things like that, different people put weight on in different places. So some people will have a pooch here. Some people will tend to actually put on weight across the back of their shoulders. So you'll have a bit of a bump there, which makes it hard to fit. Now, obviously, if you're using modern fabrics that have stretch to them, that are drapey, you're making a loose flowing outfit, those things sometimes can be hidden by the drapiness, the looseness, the stretchiness. If you're working with fabrics that don't stretch, you're going to definitely have to be more careful about that. If you're working with expensive fabrics, I was just trying to think how expensive is expensive. The most expensive fabrics I have looked at but not purchased because I didn't need them were probably $50 a yard. But I have seen fabrics that are much more expensive than that, both in Great Britain and in the United States. If you're using fabrics like that and you're making something that is unforgiving, it has to be right the first time. use some muslin or some other throwaway fabric. I used to have an entire bolt of muslin. I have used it up. It's probably time to go find a bolt of muslin online again. It allows me to do mock-ups and check the fit of something before I go to do it. I found one of the reasons I'm mentioning about using a good magic marker to mark things is I found this the other day and I thought to myself, what the heck is that from? I have no idea. I can look at it and I can see it's a sleeve. Medieval sleeves have a very specific design to them. They are not the same shape as a modern sleeve is. And part of it has to do with the way the clothing fits, and how part of it has to do with the stretchiness or non-stretchiness of the fabric. But I realized after I'd gone through some more, which is why I've spent the last week on and again, off again, going through all these, and everything is now marked. It's in, I dragged out all my old Ziploc bags. I dragged out a bunch of bags I had saved. The jewelry supplies had come in. These big ones are the jewelry supply bags. And everything is now marked. So I know what everything is. A hood with a tail. That just means the tail down the back. You know, I have all that marked, so if someone says to me, gee, do you have a pattern for a hood with a tail? I can say, oh yeah, I do, actually. You know, I'm not likely to let you borrow it, but I'll let you copy it in my house. That's an oval veil, okay? It's all written on there. I used to do the same thing when I was doing regular old sewing. It's just a handy-dandy thing to have. So I need to get back to work here because I've got 2 or 3 different pieces of clothing in process right now. I'm trying a new thing, and so far it has worked really well. I had seen someone online, don't remember who it was, suggest these clippies. I got them on Amazon. And they're just a really sturdy little plastic clip. The plastic means they're not going to leave rust stains or anything else on your fabric. I normally use regular straight pins that I picked up at, you know, Joann's or someplace like that, and I buy them in big buckets, so that when they get dull or they get bent, I throw them away. It means that I was able to take this, and I realized what it goes to. It goes to a specific outfit that I was actually looking for the sleeves from, because I have the body, but I don't have the sleeves. And it means I can try this on as long as I'm careful and figure out, I was trying to figure out what this was for, and I realized it's for the underdress because it's got a long sleeve that is relatively tight. But now I'm being gentle with this, and I'm wearing a sweatshirt, so it's bulky. But I don't want it to be super tight on me either. And this lets me look at this and say, okay, I have room here for a 1-inch seam that will be turned back, and then there'll be eyelets created in there, so this can be a lace sleeve, because that's what I'm actually looking to do, is having a lace sleeve. But the length of the sleeve is fine. I might add a teeny bit more on there. My arms are a little longer than average, so I have to be careful, and high water sleeves always makes me feel like I'm wearing my little sister's clothing. So I don't like that. It makes you look like you're wearing hand-me-downs, which were very much the norm in period, but high-class people would have tried never to do that. The servants would have worn the hand-me-downs. So I hope this lets you think about things a little bit. It's kind of an interesting issue when you're sewing, and sometimes if you can find a book like this is the Singer sewing book, and it was printed in 1949, so I wouldn't recommend that one. But there are lots of other books out there. There are lots of YouTube videos and classes you can take, online or in person. I used to do quilting classes in person. I have also helped to run sewing classes in person on how to make and remake period, historical clothing. Understanding how your fabric stretches, understanding what's likely to happen to it when it gets washed, understanding how to change a pattern so that it suits your body type better can make all the difference and make you come up with an outfit that looks great rather than just is serviceable. You know, when you're making, I don't know, a nightgown, As long as it doesn't bind anywhere, it's fine. You're making a muumuu to hang around by the pool or to sit in your backyard in the summertime. As long as it's not uncomfortable, it's fine. But if you're trying to create something that you actually would not be embarrassed to wear to the grocery store, or maybe even to something nicer. I mean, I used to wear the dresses I made to church, and I was not embarrassed to wear them because they fit right. Then getting a few tips and tricks from people who understand can make all the difference in the world. I know that places like, and I'm not sponsored by Joann's, but places like Joann's do a lot of classes and stuff like that, where you can do as simple a thing as how to make a tote, or as complicated a thing as how to start learning to tailor. It's worth it. Local universities, like there's a community college, it's a long drive from us, but there's a community college down in Prescott that has basic sewing classes there. They're mostly intended for people who are going to be doing theater costuming, but that doesn't mean you can't take them and learn how to do all this basic stuff. You may or may not ever need it, but just knowing how things work, sometimes there's been times when I have purchased something off the sale rack because I knew how to fix it. It didn't fit quite right. And it wasn't just the hem or the length of the sleeves, it was something else about ways something had been done. Maybe the zipper hadn't been set in correctly or something, and there was enough fabric to fix it. Because I knew how to do that, I could fix it. And I just think that's not a bad plan in this day and age, to know how to do stuff. Whether you ever need it or not. You know, I've helped other people who were having problems. One of my girlfriends was looking at her outfit and she couldn't figure out what was wrong with it. And I said, was it supposed to be made like this? And she told me who had made it for her. And I'm like, oh, that person was kind of famous for making things too big. So I said, we were kind of over in the corner at an event, and I said, can I put the hands on? And she said, yeah, sure, you know. And I kind of tugged the dress around a little bit. I'm like, okay, this is what you need to do. Shorten it this much here, and she wrote it down, you know, shorten it this much here, do this, do that, and you'll end up suddenly would fit. Again, it was this fact that the length of the body was wrong for her body. Her waist to shoulder length was wrong for this particular pattern. So by fixing that, by literally pulling it up the shoulders and taking it in 3 inches, suddenly the outfit was where it should have been. But sometimes when people are, you're wearing something and you can't be completely objective because you're too upset by it or you just don't have the knowledge base, it makes it hard. So don't hesitate to find yourself a good teacher, a good book, something like that. And I'm going to get back to work here because I have a bunch of things I need to do. I want to make a new overgown, and I want to make a new cape. Got to find the fabric for that. I'm not sure where that is. And yeah, I'm hoping to make some new coats, although I kind of doubt that I'll have the time to do that this month. We'll see. We'll see. We have an event. The last starts July 31st, goes through the 5th of February. And in Arizona, that means the temperature could be anywhere between 25 and 100. So, yeah, I'm thinking, I'm not too worried about the 100 part of it. I've got the lightweight stuff for that, but I'm thinking that if we get really cold again, it might be nice to have a new coat for both of us. We have cloaks, but coats could be warmer when you're actually running a shop because and then if you need extra, you can always wrap a blanket on yourself. I have wool blankets. So, until next time, be sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. And if you have specific questions, don't hesitate to ask. I have lots of books I can recommend for historic costuming. I have none that I would currently recommend for modern costuming, not because there aren't any good ones out there, but because I just don't happen to own any. I learned to sew when I was 6 years old. Well, not 6 years old. By hand when I was little, and then later on with a sewing machine. Had to take home ec in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. And then I have worked for zillions of years with people who are better sewers than I am. And it does kind of, you do absorb it by osmosis or something. So until next time, bye. Oh, and keep on brainstorming because obviously I am.